Woo, the best in the world, baby. Oh, let me tap that title. Woo. Yeah, there it is. All the gold, the podcast champion here for you, baby. And well, if you follow on the much more limited social media that I do these days, maybe you've seen some pictures of that. But anyway, I'm not here to talk about my title belt. I'm here to talk about something that I've promised for a while. And I'm glad I kind of waited, even though this is the sort of episode where I could probably do one a year, because some things change. Others have been, stuck for a long, long time. Even software I've been using for decades. But what it is the software that I use to do what I do. This is my default loadout, as it were. And we're only talking about, so here's some caveats, okay? One is, this is not going to be what Android software I use. This is not going to be for mobile software. It's not what apps I use, okay? This is entirely for my Windows 10 computer, okay? So we are talking about a Windows 10 Pro 64-bit computer here, okay? And that's the operating system. This is not, I do have other computers. I have like a Raspberry Pi. I have a couple others that, that's very different. I have Linux boxes and whatever, and those are very different situations as far as what I use on those. But important to keep in mind that a lot of the software that I use on my Windows 10 machine is something that I can, or at least the work that I do for it, is something that I can access from other operating systems and not just a Windows computer. Okay. And the other thing that we will not be bringing up is we will not be talking about gaming in this one. That could be an entirely separate episode, Patreon episode, because like what emulators do I use, etc. What controllers perhaps. I mean, because then you want to get into some hardware too. Like what are the best gaming controllers for PC, and all of that. So this is only for my Windows 10 computer, which honestly is the one that I carry around with me most of the time, and it's what I end up doing a lot of work on. And to explain that, because people are like, well, Brian, you're all about open source, blah, blah, blah. Well, so is Microsoft these days. But besides that, you're all about using decentralized stuff. You're all about using this. Yes, I am. Okay. But I do work with clients that are not all about that at all. And they never will be. Okay. So I have, computers and there's some software that I use that I've just been using forever to get stuff done. I effectively need a Windows computer. Also, like I just mentioned, I do a lot of gaming, and guess what? If you want to do gaming, yes, you can do it to some degree on Linux now, and that's nice. Okay. But if you want to do gaming, you're going to do it on Windows, like the Windows PC. In fact, I've said this many times, just have two PCs. Have your gaming, your Windows 10 gaming rig, and then have your Linux box, or your, I have an open BSD box, have your BSD box or something that you do all of your other, shall we say, important things on. Okay. So this is, we're talking about workflow and all that. I'm not talking about OpenBazaar. We're not going to talk about using the Tor browser. We're not going to talk about that sort of stuff. Okay. This is merely software that if you want to get shit done, this is how you get shit done. Okay. And look, this is important. Okay. The concept of appropriate technology, which really, that there's a gigantic kind of abstract conversation that can be had around that term. And it's not a new term. It's a term that's been around for decades, of appropriate technology. At the end of the day, what it means is, you have the right to use the technology that works for you, not that you work for it, but that works for you. Okay. Because at the end of the day, what's more important? Is it more important that the person gets out all of the, say, media creation or whatever that they do? Or is it important that they do it on Linux using completely open source software that they'd have to completely relearn after decades of using previous software or whatever? You tell me, what's more important? That they get their content out, that they get their shit done? Yeah, that they get their shit done is obviously more important. Okay, because the goal in life is to be happy. The goal in life is not necessarily that, we must all use open source. And look, I want the whole world to use open source. I want everything to be open source, and eventually I think it will be. Okay, just by the nature of the beast that is software that's eating the world. All right, but regardless, There's no need to go. I mean, unless it's something that's really, you know, like completely fucking insecure and something that, you know, just littered with exploits or that there's all kinds of problems with it, blah, blah, blah. Let people use what technology works for them, you know, like really. Okay. And by and large, you know, as far as any way anything goes, I mean, if using Windows does that for you, I mean, then fine. You know, and honestly, you know, in the grand scheme, Microsoft has done a hell of a job as far as on the security front in the past couple of years, far better than most other companies. I'm not saying they're better than Linux. I don't think they think they're better than Linux, and that's why they're starting to create or starting to heavily use Linux in their own products. Okay, I'm not saying that, you know, I'm not saying anything like that. I'm saying you use what allows you to get what you need to get done. That's what matters. All right. Now, if you have the wherewithal and the ability and everything else to jump on board and get other stuff, if you have a genuine concern about your privacy, security, and all this other stuff, then fine. You need to learn how to do that. You need to learn what to use to ensure for that. All right. But if you're just trying to get shit done, I mean, one of the easiest ways to go about this to handle security and all that, okay, is to have multiple machines. You have a Windows 10 machine over here that you don't log into for anything. And yes, you can log it. You can install Windows 10 without having to create a Microsoft account. And you just don't put any bullshit on there. And you make your stuff on it. You do your thing. And you don't, you know, you have no accounts as much as you can help it on there. Blah, blah, blah. Maybe you transfer stuff via USB drive to your Linux computer where you are logged into accounts and everything. I mean, there's a lot of ways that you can go about this to make a lot of sense that still allow you to use software that, you know, maybe you feel you need, you know, Photoshop, whatever. And before anybody fucking says it, this is part 2. Before anybody says it, no, virtual machines do not. I don't care what the math says. The math is fucking off. Virtual machines are not the end-all solution for a lot of this. Now, running stuff, you know, using the technology of virtual machines from the ground up to create a secure environment, that's another story. But to say, well, people could just run Photoshop in a virtual machine on Linux, stop. Or people could play Windows games in a virtual machine on Mac or Linux or something. Stop. No. Trust me, it doesn't work that way. The virtual machines, as far as that technology has come, okay, you still are going, especially if you're a serious fucking gamer, and I'm not even that serious. You want to be running whatever, 60, 120 FPS, whatever the fuck you want to, you know, be running, okay? It's a virtual machine's not going to do it for you. It can't. It just can't. I don't care if the math says, well, it's not mathematically different. Okay. That's the same thing that people said about MP3s. Well, it's not mathematically different than what you can hear as a human being. No. There's a goddamn difference, and I love MP3s. Between an MP3 and, you know, listening to you know, full frequency recording, give me a fucking break. So, anyway, hopefully we got all that is under the bridge, and now we can just talk about shit that's useful. How about that? We can get past all the you know, so like, here's the thing, right? I have so much respect for like Richard Stallman and, you know, guys of that ilk and everything. I have so much fucking respect for those people. Okay. But like the arguments and how they just, you know, they're really, I mean, just for people using Microsoft Word, like they're so degrading and so insulting, and it's like, stop. What? Like let people get their shit done. Yeah, we want people using other stuff, but shaming them about it isn't necessarily going to help anything. And it's not like there's, you know, I mean, yeah, there used to be the problem with macros and Microsoft Word and everything. I mean, yeah, there used to be genuine security issues. A lot of these things have been licked. So, you know, people got to make money. People got to live. The goal in life is to be happy. All right. And that takes a lot of different shapes. I get what makes Richard Stallman happy, but that's not what might make, you know, one of my patrons happy or even me happy or whatever. Okay. So we got to make that perfectly clear. All right. You use the technology that works for you. So yes, in my perfect world, I would only use my OpenBSD machine. Everything would you know, work beautifully on that, and because it runs Linux software better than Linux does, frankly, and it really does. You know, and I would just be doing everything there, and all this shit would just automatically work out of the box. I'd have open hardware and all that shit. I'm not making an argument for pragmatism here either. I'm just saying, yes, in my perfect world, that's how things would be, but we're not there, not yet. We're going to get there. And, as all of us hopefully get wealthier through the, crypto economy and cryptocurrency, boom. And I don't mean boom as in like it's going to bust at some point and go away. There might be minor busts here and there, but, when we're wealthy and we have the true measure of success, which is the ability to be permanently AFK, then we can really choose what software, that we want to run, what hardware we want to use and all of this, because that's when you start making fuck you money, and you can tell people that, well, hey, could you look at this Word doc? Fuck you. No, I can look at that ODT. Kiss my ass. But a lot of us aren't at that stage yet. So we don't do it. It's that simple. And it's sad. Like, I mean, it's really sad because, you get people that'll say, well, you don't have to have a Google account. And I just push right back at that. And I say, bullshit. If you're going to school, if you're going to work at a government job or a whole ton of jobs, there's a pretty good bet that either you'll need a Gmail account or you'll need a GApps account or some kind, because it's a part of, like, you just have to have it. You don't have a choice anymore sometimes for this shit. And it's really sad. I mean, and it sucks, and we got to get past it. And we'll get past it, all right? But again, right now, some of us, there's certain software that we have to use. So let's talk about what that software is that we have to use. All right. I mean, yeah, let's keep pushing. Let's keep saying, hey, can we, we need to be thinking about open source. We need to be doing this. And if you start your own little company and you can implement that in what you do, then great. That is so cool. I mean, really, like that's really, really great. Please do that. And then one by one, we'll get away from all this shit. So, okay, let's start breaking all of this down. And let's see, what should we start with? Well, so like I said, we're talking about a computer that, in fact, this is my Asus ZenBook 3. It's a very small computer, not a very powerful computer, because I don't really need a whole lot of power necessarily for this, for all of these aspects that I do. So I put it in its place. It's not my central machine. It's not what makes my world go round. Okay, but this is what I'm. But for a lot of people, I mean, they use Windows, and great, or not great, but okay, fine. I understand, which is why I'm doing this episode. Because I have to do it too. And look, there's there's another thing I tell people all the time. All the best security researchers, a lot of these people that are really into making sure that, our privacy, we've got privacy, security, stopping exploits and everything, bug hunting and all that. These guys, don't let them fool you. They've got a Windows 10 machine at home, or they have a Windows machine at home of some kind, guaranteed. And they might be running some really, really important stuff. Okay. And they've kept their shit locked down for decades on that. And they've never had any breaks or any exploits or anything, committed against them, or any security issues. So it can be done. Okay. But anyway, this is my Windows 10 loadout. Now I will say quickly that it being 64-bit is pretty important as far as that security goes. And as much as you can, and sometimes with some of this software, you have to hunt a little bit, okay, to find 64-bit versions of it. I recommend doing that for a few reasons. One is, of course, is that you can make use, if necessary, of more than the 4 gig of RAM, if your computer has more than 4 gig of RAM, on your machine, okay? So that's one reason to use 64-bit. Things like Photoshop and some others, which I don't even use Photoshop. Okay. But things like Photoshop and some others, I mean, I haven't installed, I have like Photoshop CS2 because now the activation server, has been shut down for Photoshop CS2. So you can just install it and you don't have to crack it anymore or anything. So that's one reason. But then the other reason is that with 64-bit software, a lot of times the various memory leaks and other security issues that happen with 32-bit software don't affect it. Okay, so do your searches, use DuckDuckGo or something. See if you can find 64-bit versions of whatever software I'm listing off, or any software that you use personally. Okay, there's might be some pieces of software in this that I'll link to. Okay. But some of the stuff is in like the Microsoft Store, and you can't, you can link to it, I guess, with that. But anyway, that'd be a pain in the ass. So, but you'll have a full list in the show notes of all the names of the software that I'll be using. Another quick thing is that I will not be going over my browser extensions, my browser setup. That is something that'll be a separate episode as well, as far as so I use Firefox. All right. So what add-ons do I use for Firefox? That is a whole other episode. That would take an entire episode to discuss, how that works. And I know people would be very interested in that, and we'll get to it. We will do that. So we're Windows 10. That's 64-bit. We've got that down. Okay. And I guess I should say quickly, because it's Windows 10 64-bit Pro, what am I using as any kind of hard disk encryption? VeraCrypt is great. That's my top recommended. That's VeraCrypt. Okay. But because it's just my Windows 10 machine, I just use BitLocker. I don't expect my Windows machine to be like NSA proof. I just don't. Okay. So I just use BitLocker because that should stop the average run-of-the-mill, hacker/cracker. So that's important to bring up. And understand that BitLocker really only works if you have the pro versions of whatever version of Windows you happen to be using. Again, I'll be talking about stuff. Some of this is only on Windows 10. So if you're using anything other than Windows 10, some of this you can't get access to. So we talked about that. And understand that, yes, so I do have a Microsoft account that is involved in what I do on my Windows 10 computer. Because of that, and because I believe in one of the best forms of security is account minimalism, I do use a lot of what Microsoft already has available on the, that comes, default stock on a Windows 10 machine. So not just account minimalism, where I have as few accounts as possible, but also software minimalism, where I install as little software as possible. So for those reasons, among a couple others, I use OneDrive. Now, OneDrive is not the optimal cloud storage service. In fact, OneDrive Gate, I am still very burned by that. It's really annoying that I only have, and I mean this, that I only have 1 terabyte of storage that I get access to. But I have an Office 365 account, and that gets used for various business. And so what the hell? I use OneDrive. It's available. It's there. It doesn't charge me like Amazon's, their cloud drive does now, where it's only 1 terabyte also, and it's like $60 a year. Google Drive, fuck Google. I'm just not using it. Dropbox, Condoleezza Rice, fuck you. No, well, I get it. Some people have to use Dropbox, right? Fortunately, I've yet to run into a client where that's been a necessity. So OneDrive works for me. Okay. And I use it, I don't use it for everything. Understand also, and this is a separate conversation, which I talked about in a previous Patreon episode, which is about setting up a Synology NAS, network area storage. I do a lot of stuff on my NAS. I will not be talking about what I do, what I use with my NAS, because that's a completely different conversation, which I already covered in a previous episode. So a lot of things I will actually use, my NAS for. And especially when it comes to like doing work with, say, a team or something. Okay. Because, especially like a Synology NAS, you have so many, there's so much great software, Office software, music software, all this other shit, that's really, it's a computer away from a computer, and you don't have to rely on Google, on cloud storage services or on cloud services and all stuff. It's so great because it's your own little personal cloud, right? And you could use things like Sandstorm.io and others. I know. So anyway, so I use OneDrive so understand that coming along with that, obviously with OneDrive, that explains, or that hints at a lot of the other software that I use. Yeah, I do a lot of work within Microsoft's Office ecosystem. Okay, another reason that I use OneDrive. Also, you'll see later on that there's other things I use within Microsoft's ecosystem that are completely cross-platform, that using OneDrive gives you some interesting advantages, which we'll be covering those as we go over this. Okay, so OneDrive is my cloud storage du jour. Now, for what do I do for my writing, and how I, writing short fiction, doing my show notes, and putting a bunch of stuff together. With show notes, there's a couple different things that I go through, but So as far as writing and making up documents and all this different stuff, I do use Microsoft Word. Now, Microsoft Word, there's a big conversation that could be had around that, right? Okay, especially around Microsoft's policy, shall we say, or philosophy of embrace and extend. And Microsoft Word, like most people don't realize it. Microsoft Word, and there's been quite a few tech journalists and tech commentators that have made this point. Microsoft Word itself has really held up almost the entire computer industry because it's become such a standard, and because it was like buying out all of the little companies that were coming up with interesting ideas and sometimes wouldn't introduce those into Word itself, that perhaps a lot of the creative processes that we could do with computers was really, really held up by Microsoft Word. And I mean, some people argue that like the computing industry is actually 25 years behind where it could be because of, Microsoft Word. So I understand the potential evils around Microsoft Word. That said, it is a standard. There are, sharing doc files and docx files, okay, is a standard amongst clients and businesses. And honestly, as much as LibreOffice or OpenOffice can handle docx files, they don't always translate very well. They don't always format properly when they are shared. This is a real problem. Okay, it's a very real problem. Thus, I use Microsoft Word to get the most amount of work done. See? Okay, so, and Word, honestly, if you get rid of like the top bar and everything, like because it's bloated. No doubt about it, it's bloated. Microsoft Office in general is fucking bloated as hell. Okay, and I don't know anybody, even people that love Microsoft Office, they don't even want to touch Outlook, that being the desktop app of Outlook, not Outlook.com. Because I mean, it's a goddamn mess, but if you can hide a lot of the features very easily, there's just a little, that little pin tab that you can click, and then suddenly all that shit disappears, and it becomes a very basic editor, text editor in a way, but it has all of that compatibility with if you need to deal with the enterprise class, shall we say. So yeah, I use Microsoft Word a lot. I make up the show notes for shows within Microsoft Word. I do a lot of my writing in Microsoft Word. Now with the Sovereign Tech newsletter, I actually put that together within MailChimp itself. So Word can do like newsletter templates and things like this. I don't use it for that. But I do use it, when I make invoices, I use Microsoft Word because it makes that all very easy. So I use Microsoft Word a lot. That's open often. And the nice thing is now with Office Online, and since you're storing things in your OneDrive documents, okay, you can, I can go to a Linux machine and I can just go to my OneDrive in the browser and I can open up, Word Online and I can, edit and do whatever I need to right there. And Word Online was rough at first. When they first introduced it, it was pretty ugly, but it's gotten a lot better. It's not feature rich and on parity with the desktop app, but I don't ever really expect it to be. Or that wouldn't make sense because they offer it for free, but it does the job. It definitely has enough to where if I need to do it from another computer that's not a Windows machine, I can do it. So Microsoft Word, big part of my day. Big part of my day. Next big part of my day, mentioned doing show notes. Obviously, what do I use to record podcasts with? Well, I use Audacity. I've been tempted to look at some other software, but this is one of those cases where because Audacity just works instantly on fucking everything, except for mobile, because it's just there. I use it, and it's another one where it's software that I just know so well. And that's the thing, like Microsoft Word, I know it so well. Like I've just been using it forever. And, I'm such an expert with it that, there's a bit of comfort that comes along with using it. I'm not opposed to people using LibreOffice and other things. Of course not. Okay. But yeah, that does the job there. Now for my podcast recording, like I said, I use Audacity. I've been very pleased with, was it version 2.1? Yeah, I think it's version 2.1 where they've added in a lot of nice little features. I love Audacity. I use it. There's some arguments against it because it's a destructive player or recorder. or editor, I guess I should say. But it does everything that I want, and again, I can use it anywhere, and it's like, that one kind of design, that UX that you can just jump right in on whatever machine you happen to be using, Windows or Linux or BSD or whatever. So I use Audacity for that. Now, an extra app that I want to mention that I use that I forgot to mention with the show notes is that there is the Trello app that came out specifically for Windows 10, where it's a full-on app, but you don't have to go to the website. I do use the Trello app, like Stephanie for the Sex and Science Hour notes. Stephanie has full creative and recording control and everything of Sex and Science Hour. I kind of just show up, and I talk. I have some saying what can get talked about, but that's really, her show, her thing, and she does so great with it. But we use Trello for that to organize show notes and shows and everything, because I end up, making up I put together the show notes, I format them and everything, and do all the uploading of the show later on. Just to understand how I work within that. But again, that's not like my show. That's not where I have, total creative control. That's Stephanie's thing, which is fine. So Trello, the Trello app is another one that's really interesting. That's a very unique. Trello is very, very unique. It's granted, even with the Trello app, you're still kind of doing everything online. It's not like you have the ability to store local boards, which Trello uses boards. It's supposed to be like pin boards or whatever. It uses boards. Those are all cloud stored. It's not something, even when you use the Trello app, it's not something that's localized where it's on your hard disk. But yeah, that's pretty handy to do that. And really, I've gotten to the point, and this is just kind of an abstract notion, but I've gotten to the point where I don't really want the less I can do inside of a web browser, the better. I try to put a web browser in its place. Frankly, Microsoft's UWP, Universal Windows Apps and whatever, that they've been designing or that they've been rolling out for a while, really allows for that. Like you can install the Instagram app on a Windows 10 computer, on any Windows 10 computer. Now, the computer has to have a touchscreen for you to be able to upload photos to Instagram with the official Instagram app. But bottom line being is that, it's a little something, even if it's still a cloud service of some kind, where I don't have to be in the browser, because as much as we can separate from that, great. So the Trello app, that's something that I also take advantage of. So, and like I said, podcast recording, I use Audacity straight up. I'm looking into Cubase and some others, but really, Audacity is where it's at. It's totally free. There's no reason not to use it. Photo work and photo editing. Okay. So what I use for this, there's 3 different ones that I use, even though 99% of what I want to do, unless I really have to create something unique, it's a different story. But as in like from the ground up, that I have to do some kind of artwork, which I am no artist, not as far as drawing, or any of that goes. Most of what I do, I can do in Autodesk's now defunct, but you can still download it, even though they're, okay. So Autodesk Pixlr, Autodesk I don't think got bought out, but Pixlr, Pixlr, that got bought out by another company. And they shut down, when they bought it out, they shut down the desktop app. They didn't shut down the mobile app, but they shut down the desktop app that Pixlr, that Autodesk had created of Pixlr. Now, there's still the online version of this, but it's not the same. The Autodesk was making a really, really slick desktop app that was all localized. It was a full-on desktop app. It was not accessing their cloud servers unless you want to download some graphics from them or something. This is no longer, you can't get it anymore. Okay. You can find the EXE like maybe on Softpedia or something. Good luck. I forget it. I saved it, and I will continue to save it because it's local software. I can just install it, and it doesn't matter if the company that bought Pixlr doesn't want it. This is the beauty of having, something that doesn't rely on cloud services. And I use it for just about everything because it has really cool double exposure features, resizing. It's just very simple to work with. the full-on desktop app of Pixlr. So if you can find it, I think it's great. I use it a lot. If I need to go like really, really granular or deeper, because that sort of is a basic app, but it handles it's what I make most of the show artwork with. A lot of the things that I do with that. If I have to go super granular, I'm very familiar with GIMP, which is what I use on any other computer besides a Windows computer. And also, but if I'm on a Windows computer, another one that I run to is Paint.net, which is just a classic. I've been using Paint.net for so long, and they just came out with the UWP app version of that, which I use that when I can. So let me explain this. When I'm on a Windows 10 computer, because those apps are sandboxed and thus more secure, they're separate from the rest of the system. I will use those, where I can. Like, even if there's a non-UWP app version of it, I will use the UWP app version, except for one piece of software, but I'll mention which one that is when we get to it. Okay. But otherwise I will use the UWP app. And so like with Paint.net, now I use the UWP app, and it costs a little money. That's another thing. Everything on here that costs any kind of money, I've paid for, either a lifetime license or something like that. The art of cracking software has kind of become a pain in the ass depending upon the software. And it's always been kind of risky business, because you never knew if that exe file that you were going to swap out with the original one was going to be some kind of, Trojan or, some kind of malware or something like that. I got to the point where I'm like, all right, this isn't the 90s anymore where they charge $300 for a piece of software, unless it's something from Photoshop or, from Adobe. I'll pay the $20, $30, $5, $10, whatever, that little bit, I'll pay for it. So just so you're aware of that, if you look up something and say, oh, you got to pay for it. Yeah, you got to pay for it, you don't have to. You could still go to Pirate Bay. But anyway, that's your call. So, okay, next. Mentioned, photo editing. So music, what do I do for music playing? Now, for my full-on music collection, which I have very deeply cataloged, I was using Google Play Music for a long, long time. And then eventually, because, there was a time where I was a Google fanboy, and obviously over those years, I spent a lot of time uploading tens of thousands of songs to Google Play Music, totally for free. After I finally said, okay, no, I'm getting away from Google, and these are things I've talked about on Sovereign Tech Prime episodes, where Google was, with their cloud service, was replacing, they fucked up, so my double disc greatest hits from Poison. I think it was Nothing But a Good Time. Somehow, and I'm not going to talk about, believe me, there's no reason this should have happened. It was a total fuck up on their part. There is no excuse. They replaced Nothing But a Good Time with Up All Night by Slaughter. Nothing But a Good Time by Poison was replaced by Up All Night by Slaughter. And even when I re-download the album, it totally put Slaughter in place of that. Like, it was the craziest shit in the world. I am completely done with Google Play Music. So what I use now, not for if it's just like a local file, like a little MP3 that I want to play or something, I use something different for that. But for my serious music collection and music listening, I use Groove Music from Microsoft. Now, understand, I'm a guy who wants to own his music. I don't have to have the CD, okay, but I want to have the file. I want to have control. I don't want to pay for a subscription service, okay? I want the files. I want to catalog them. I want to do all that shit. And so I use Groove Music for that, for a few reasons. One is that it's already installed on Windows 10. The other, it's available on mobile platforms. The other, you can install the Groove app. Okay. The other thing is that it has a web player, so I can even play it from a Linux machine through a web browser, but I can play it through a Linux machine, even though they don't have a Linux app. So it's completely cross-platform, and I have access to my music anywhere, anytime. And that music is all stored in my OneDrive folder. In OneDrive, this is a perk of OneDrive. They give you a specific music folder where you can upload music files, and then Groove can play them. Okay. I have other copies of my music collection, not just that one, but bottom line being, that's my go-to. That's what I use to play my personal collection. Now, Groove recently got rid of their their Music Pass, which allowed you to just like stream like Spotify, stream whatever and just pay a subscription fee. That's where I stream my own collection. That's gone, but it doesn't matter. I don't want that. In fact, I like back when I was using Google Play Music more, they had the Google Play Music All Access, which allows you to get access to, 30 some odd million songs or something. What was annoying is that it would want to play the versions that were from the streaming service, from, All Access. And say if I already had the CD, it wouldn't immediately suggest to me my version of the song, which may be different. And so I don't like that. I want my collection. If there's music I want to listen to, I fucking own it. You understand? I'll buy it, whatever it takes. I own it. So I don't need the streaming services. I'm just not interested in it. I mean, I see, like, I think Pandora, there's advantages to that. Like, I get some of the advantages to these things, but for me, it's just, I guess I'm old school, in that way. So let me switch to, I didn't necessarily have this in order. Let me switch down to some music management. What do I do to manage that massive collection? And it is a massive collection. It's in the hundreds of thousands of songs. I mean, I have a lot. And what do I use to manage it? So as far as like ID3 tags and all that stuff, now a lot of this you can do right within Windows 10. Like you go to, right click on a file and hit properties or something, or select a bunch of files, hit properties, and you can edit the ID3 tag right through the properties, window that comes up on Windows. Okay. But I think you could even do it down in the File Explorer as well, or at least you used to be able to do that. But I have traditional software that I've been using for over a decade that's really, really handy, that I use for all of my ID3 tagging and file renaming and everything like that. And it's called Tag and Rename. That's the name of the software, Tag and Rename. Now, I'll give you a hint. Okay, if you decide to get a cracked version of this and not pay for it, and even if you pay for it, you can, when you do the install, you can choose to install a portable version, meaning that you can just transfer the folder and files to any computer that you want, or you could leave it on and run it off of a USB drive even if you wanted to. Okay, which I used to be really big on portable apps. Things are changing to where that's not as practical as it once was. But I still love portable apps. That could be portableapps.com is another conversation. If you want to ask me, maybe I could talk about it in the Q&A. Okay. But portable, I mean, in a world where people do have multiple computers now that they own themselves personally, portable apps has kind of become redundant, even though I still love the idea and the overall concept. But you can do a portable installation of Tag and Rename. That way, you never have to crack it again, or you never have to worry about the software license or anything like that ever again. And you can just share it across, whatever computer you want to put it on. And you just put the folder on and, create a shortcut link on your, however you want to, make it easily accessible, and away you go. So Tag and Rename is what I do for all of that. As far as conversion, because sometimes I download or however I end up getting it. Or if I'm ripping an actual CD, which I do still buy CDs. There's a lot, a lot of people don't, I've said this before, but like if music soundtracks or if film soundtracks, as in the score, like the instrumental and all that, if that was actually a genre, more of a genre of music, like kind of like how metal or rap or hip hop or R&B or jazz or something like that was, film scores would be my genre of choice. Like I wouldn't even, that'd be my number one genre. Not even a metalhead. I would be a film score junkie. Okay. And so, there's a lot of the companies like Entrada, La La Land Records, and like Varese Bond and all them. They will release soundtracks. They don't always make them CD exclusives, but a lot of times they make them CD exclusives, and you can't buy them anyway or anywhere else. So I do still buy a lot of CDs, and I might resell them, but I do still buy them, once they're ripped. But so what I use for either converting a CD or converting, say, a FLAC file to MP3, like 192K MP3, which I think is kind of the perfect balance of sound and size. I use Easy, the literal letters E and Z, Easy CD audio converter. That's what I use for that. That allows for some tagging and all that. It's a beautiful piece of software. There's like two different there's two different names for it, and they're two different companies, but it's like the same exact software. And I've interchanged over the years and didn't even really realize it, but that's the one I use now, and I think it's up to like version 17 or something like that. Easy CD audio converter. That's what I use. I mean, and you can with this software, like whatever file fucking music file format you've got, you can throw at it and you can convert it into goddamn anything. I mean, it's really, really nice, very easy to use software for all of that. And it's really a kind of software that Linux doesn't really have a comparable piece of software for this. And that has to do with various, obviously proprietary libraries and everything. But yeah, this is the gold standard of converting audio files. And I like to have standardized, like even if somehow I download an AAC, like or an album that's mainly an AAC or M4A or something like that, I'll still convert it to a 192 MP3 just because I love that kind of, that really standardized, look for it. So, or not look, but standardized like file format. That's really important to me. The other thing I will do, this is the other piece of music management software that I use, is WX MP3 Gain. Now, what this is that some, and I wish Easy CD Audio Converter would do this automatically, but some albums, like, and the ones that come to mind very quickly would be like Danger Danger's Screw It from, was it 92? One of the best albums of all time, and I'm dead serious about that. That album, like the sound, just the sound, the volume is really low. Okay. So when I converted that to MP3s, like it sounds a lot lower than all of my other soundtracks or all of my other albums, I should say. And because it's not a soundtrack. And so, I wanted to raise the gain on it. Now, what used to be cool was that, especially when music wasn't something, I mean, your iPod would do it, but like when smartphones weren't the big deal and you played most of your music off of a smartphone. Like iTunes was really cool where iTunes had an actual, like you could control per album, per song. You could granularly change the volume for each album and each song. Obviously iTunes sucks now. And that would, because iTunes is how you connected stuff to your iPod, which I had an iPod forever. It would translate directly to your iPod. Your iPod would keep the setting because you synced it with, via iTunes. That used to be the way to solve it. But now things don't really work that way. Okay. So, and like I said, now iTunes sucks and iPods are practically gone, as much as I love them and would still use one, frankly, anyway, that's another conversation. So you want to, so WX MP3 Gain is really great for solving that problem. It does a great job of leveling everything. I mean, it's just very nice for music. Now, I mean, for podcasts, if I need to be leveling sound, I can do all of that right within Audacity. But, for my music collection, I use WX MP3 Gain for that. So now, how about other multimedia? Okay. I mentioned this. Now, if I just have like some stray MP3 that I want to listen to, I do not let it go into Groove Music at all, and I don't want Groove Music to catalog it. I use VLC Player. I've been recommending VLC Player for as long as Sovereign Tech has been around, and I've been using it for twice that amount of time. I remember when VLC Player wasn't even version 1.0. I've been using it for fucking ever. And it is the gold standard. It is everywhere. It is completely cross-platform. It'll play just about anything, save one, is that it's complex, and I talked about this on recent Sovereign Tech Prime episodes. It is a complex situation to get VLC Player to play Blu-rays. That is a difficult situation. Okay. But I'll use VLC Media Player to play everything else because it is sandboxed. I do not use the UWP app of VLC. This is that one piece of software where I said, yeah, it has a UWP app, but I don't use it. The UWP app is missing a ton of features, just a ton of features. Okay. So like speed control and everything, like that's really cool. Most people don't even realize they can do this. They can watch a movie in 2x, at 2 times the speed, with VLC Player. It's not, that time shifter isn't like right in the, not the taskbar, but in the control center of VLC. But you can find it. It's a setting. It's there, and you can add it to the control bar, and it's just, or to the menu and everything. and I love being able to do that, frankly. That's part of how I get to watch so many shows and a lot of movies and everything in so little time, because, if I have to, I'll watch them at a significantly greater speed. VLC player for just about everything except for Blu-rays. Now, here's the problem. This is another thing where, playing Blu-rays on Linux or BSD or anything like that doesn't really work. I mean, you can kind of get it to do it. There's some tricks. I'm aware of them. But there's nothing that's really like out of the box that lets you do it. So another reason where maybe you need a Windows machine, or maybe you just buy a standalone Blu-ray player. Maybe that's your speed. I don't know, and nothing wrong with that either. But this was actually the 2017 Software of the Year for Sovereign Tech, and that was the Laewo Blu-ray player. That's Laewo. This is a completely free Blu-ray player software, which most Blu-ray player software you can't say that about. And it does a great job of keeping up with all of the latest DRM libraries that the latest Blu-rays come out with, because they keep updating this bullshit. I'm not going to get into the big story again. I already talked about it. You can even, I clipped it out because people loved it so much. I put it on my YouTube channel. That's what I use for Blu-rays most of the time. I will use Power DVD. I would use Power DVD if it was, if it could keep up with a lot of the different DRM libraries better. But yeah, I use Laewo Blu-ray player for Blu-rays on Windows. Okay, so moving on. How about like PDFs, comics, because I read a ton of comics on my computer. I don't really buy comics anymore in that way to where it's a physical copy, and books. So, of course, I have an e-reader for books that I use most of the time. But if I need to read books, or if I need to read a PDF file, or if I need to read comics on a computer, on Windows, I use one piece of software, and that is SumatraPDF, which I've recommended for a very long time. And it handles all three of those with absolute aplomb. It just does a beautiful job. It's a very nice, simple piece of software, feature-rich. If you need to be like annotating PDFs and doing all this other bullshit with PDFs, and, you need to be doing PDF creation, what software you use for that sort of stuff. Okay. But I don't use Acrobat Reader. I don't trust it. I don't trust much of anything from Adobe. That is a company with a lot of problems. But SumatraPDF is what I use for all of that, and I've been using it for a very, very, very long time. And so it's one of the first pieces of software I'll ever install on a new Windows build. It's just instantaneous. As far as if I need to, just like I like to standardize my MP3s, if I need to standardize my book collection, not that I mind having a combination of EPUBs or PDFs, or if I want to convert. So I keep most of my books as either EPUBs or PDFs, and those are the only two file formats I pretty much accept. But of course, my e-reader is a Kindle Oasis, the new Kindle Oasis. So they have to be in a .mobi format to be able to read on the e-reader. So to do that, I keep everything as an EPUB, but to do that, I use a conversion tool to turn it into a Mobi so I can read it on my e-reader. I use Calibre, or maybe it's Calibre, but I think it's Calibre, Calibre, and there are 64-bit versions of this, by the way. Make sure you get that. But anyway, that's what I use for that, and it's really, really nice. Just very simple, nice software. It's been around for a while. It's amazing how much it updates, but that's what I use for my book conversion. So, all right, how about videos? What do I do for video creation? Because I do some video creation here and there. I've been, for so long, I have used Microsoft Movie Maker, which was a part of like Windows Essentials, which they canceled years ago. And they turned off the server that lets you download software, the software that you need for it. So if you didn't get Windows Movie Maker installed on your computer in time, you might not be able to ever get Windows Movie Maker again. And that's a real pity, because Windows Movie Maker, it had transitions, it had a bunch of other stuff. What was really nice about it, it was probably the easiest way on Windows to make a YouTube video. Okay, especially if, say, it's one where you just want pictures and some sound and upload it to YouTube. Like when I used to upload, I don't do this really anymore, but when I used to upload the entire episodes of Sovereign Tech onto YouTube, that's what I would use. I would use Windows Movie Maker, and all I would do is take a picture of the logo from Sovereign Tech, put that in, and then I would just drag in the MP3 file and hit export as whatever format you wanted. If you wanted it in 720p, I didn't need it in 720p. And there's a lot of nice little features. If you have Windows Movie Maker, it's great. If you can get your hands on it somewhere or somehow, do it, because it's just such a simple, and it has, it has some features, transitions, things like that, that make it fairly nice and easy to use. There's another piece of software. This is a UWP app that I haven't jumped on yet, or I haven't tested yet, but I have heard about it, that it might be a good replacement for Microsoft's or Windows Movie Maker or Microsoft's Movie Maker, which is Movie Maker Free. That's the name of it, Movie Maker Free. And it's a UWP app, so you have to go to the Microsoft store to get it. That might be an interesting replacement for Microsoft's Movie Maker. And the Movie Maker software that came as part of the photo app that comes with Windows 10 does not really replace everything that Windows Movie Maker could do back in the day. So yeah, that's not really a solution. Now, when I'm making full motion video for my video games or doing something really serious, I use PowerLink CyberDirector. That is my video editor of choice when it comes to getting like really serious and I have to add in a ton of effects and do all this other wacky shit. I do use CyberDirector. It's one of the areas, same with music, in podcast creation and things like this. Like, there's a real advantage with Apple's software and hardware, like what comes with like iMovie and GarageBand and all that. Like, those play all really nicely. They are very feature rich. I get the argument. I'm slightly jealous of Apple users for having access to that sort of stuff. I think that's pretty impressive. Okay, so let's move on from that. Now, how about, say I make a video and say I want to put it onto a DVD, like an M-Disc DVD, right, which will last me 1,000 years, or I want to make a Blu-ray or something like this. Or maybe I want to rip a Blu-ray or rip a DVD, or maybe even like a PlayStation 2 game or something onto my computer to where I could play it, or do whatever, store it locally, or have a backup or something, whatever I do. So my disk imaging software that I use, there's a couple different ones. My standard that I've used for, again, over 10 years now is called PowerISO. They're up to version 7.0. You do have to get all of the features within it. You do have to pay for it, and I think it's like $30 or something. I've had a license for it forever, so I forget. But PowerISO, you could still use it for a couple of very basic features, and the two basic features that you could actually use it for is if you just want to make a disk image. It does a great job of that, and you don't have to have the full registered version to be able to do that. Also, it has a great virtual drive where it can pretend that you could load up an ISO image of some kind into a virtual drive on your computer. PowerISO has excellent virtual drive capabilities. And even though virtual drives have really, they're almost pointless now. Like, this used to be remember daemon tools? Like, this used to be a very popular thing to do, especially with gaming, where that way you didn't have to have the CD in your laptop. You could just have a disk image of it and you could play it off of a virtual drive. That's where PowerISO originally was kind of a thing. But now a lot of software, like a lot of emulators, say for like PlayStation emulators, or even like VLC, if you wanted to play a DVD, a disk image of a DVD, a lot of those now they can just play the ISO raw. Like you don't need to put it in a virtual drive to be able to play it, to get access to it. So virtual drives have kind of fallen out of vogue, as it were. So maybe not the most important feature, but I do use PowerISO. Some very specific disk imaging, I have to use Imgburn, which is Imgburn, and that depends. But if I can do everything in PowerISO, I do it in PowerISO. Now, if I need to make an M-Disc, here's the one thing: if I'm making an M-Disc disc, okay, which is a different style, look it up. I'm not going to cover it all right here. Okay, which is a different style of disc than a normal DVD or Blu-ray, even though they're still DVDs and Blu-rays. I have to use a very specific piece of burning software for that. And this software, Imgburn, is free. This piece of software is also free. Like I said, PowerISO can be free depending on what you want to use it for, but you might have to pay for some of the features. I use Ashampoo Burning Studio 2015 for burning M-Discs. Now, when you install Ashampoo, Like, this is nice. I mean, actually, a lot of what it has or what it can do is what you would want PowerISO to do. So maybe you don't need PowerISO at all, and I'm just used to installing it, and so I still do. Maybe I don't even need it. Ashampoo Burning Studio or 2015, you can get it for free. They ask you for your email address and then they send you a license key, but it is totally for free, and just use a bullshit email address or something, because they'll start sending you newsletters and it's really annoying. So use a BS email address, but then you can get the license key, and then you can use that license key as much as you want on many computers as you want, and all of that. But Ashampoo Burning Studio 2015, that's what I use to make my M discs. And in fact, the M Disk Foundation, or whatever, the company that makes M discs, it's what they recommend that you use. And like I said, totally free. Okay, now perhaps a little bit of computer maintenance. Defraggers are pointless now that we have solid state drives, so don't even bother with that. If you really wanted to use some kind of defragger, there is a SumatraPDF Pro, which I have used, and that does a pretty beautiful job of taking care of all that. And they try to make you think that they're taking care of your solid state drive and stuff like that. But I think frankly, it's bullshit. But SumatraPDF, I've used that for a while. That's a really nice, it's one of those things where I have a lifetime license to it. And that's really nice, to have that. But you generally don't need it. And if you wanted and that's a pay for piece of software, if you wanted something simpler, and that didn't cost anything, there is Defraggler from the company Puriform. But now for computer maintenance, Puriform has, even though I think Puriform got bought out, yes, they got bought out recently, they have a piece of software that pretty much any Windows user installs. And even though there were security concerns that we talked about on Sovereign Tech Prime episodes over the summer, and that's CCleaner. Now, if you had the 64-bit version of CCleaner, you didn't have anything to worry about. There was no. This is why I was saying. This is part of the reason I was saying that if you can find a 64-bit version of what you're installing, do so, because it can solve a lot of malware and a lot of exploits and all these other issues. Okay, I do have CCleaner still installed. There are other options like, what is it, BleachBit or whatever, or is it BleachBit? Yeah. There's other options for that are all about cleaning up your cache and different things in the computer. But, I still use CCleaner here and there. And it's just such a simple piece of software to remember, to install. And like I said, 64-bit versions were never really an issue. For uninstalling software, not just cleaning up cache, but for uninstalling software, there's a very nice piece of software that I always install right away. On a computer, which is REVO Uninstaller, REVO Uninstaller. And REVO Uninstaller does a really great job of getting rid of everything, even like registry entries and all this other stuff. Everything, when you uninstall a piece of software on your Windows computer, REVO really gets rid of it. It's very, very nice piece of software. There's a free version, and then there's a paid-for version. I've never really seen the advantage to the paid-for version. So, the free version will do you fine, but you could pay for it as well. I do have a paid-for version of it, but again, I don't really see the advantage, even though like one's kind of like multiple version numbers behind. But I don't think it necessarily matters. So there's those. Okay, next thing I got on the list, camera. What do I have as far as apps that control my camera? I just use Windows 10 has a really nice, very simple camera app built into it, which this was not commonplace. Chromebooks are really what made this commonplace, where there's just a very simple camera that can access the webcam on your computer or whatever cameras you happen to have connected or something. I just use the stock camera app for that. And like, if you ever see me share pictures of me in the BDSM studio, I'm just using the Windows 10 camera app right there. So that's really all you need as far as that goes. I have others, like I have, UCam and all that stuff from Cyberlink. I've got a ton of pieces of software that I could use, but I never find the need to really use those. So the camera app, it does the job. Let's see, virtual assistants. So I actually don't like to use virtual assistants. I messed with Cortana for a while, and there were some things that were really cool about Cortana, including the fact that I was using Groove Music as my music player, because I could say to Cortana, "Hey Cortana, play the," oh shit. I could activate her and say, play this, Curse of Darkness by Dragon Force. And Cortana, you could be across the room and Cortana would do a pretty good job. And in pretty short order, she'd bring up Groove and she'd play Curse of Darkness by Dragon Force. Great. But I never found myself really using it outside of that, especially with Windows 10. So like the calendar function within Windows 10 itself. No app. I mean, there's a built-in calendar app, so I guess I shouldn't say no app. But the calendar, you can just add in notifications into your calendar just by clicking on the time on the taskbar in Windows 10. Why the hell would you talk to your computer to set that up? I mean, it's so simple to just implement that. You can just click on a day and what do you want to add in, and you add it in. I guess that answers what my calendar app generally is, and how I go about using a calendar, which is tied into my Microsoft account, which is thus tied into a lot of what I do with email. So I don't really use virtual assistants, and I just didn't see. I mean, Cortana's always there. You can't exactly turn it off anymore, but I just don't find myself really using it. The music feature was like the only cool thing I thought that it could really do. It can open apps and you can start playing them. Like if you used Audible, like that's pretty cool when it can do that. But that's about all it can really do that I found to be like fun or useful. Speaking of that, podcasts. How do you listen to podcasts on your computer? Because that is one of the primary ways that I listen to it. I pop on a pair of Bluetooth headphones and it's connected to my laptop and away I go. I try not to have my smartphone with me at all. There's the Sirius XM UWP app, which I use that. There is the Audible UWP app, which I use the fuck out of that big time. Both of those are official apps. As far as for podcasts themselves, Windows 10 actually has one of the best podcast apps, bar none. Like next to Pocket Casts, it's top notch, and it's called Grover Pro. And you do have to pay, I think, for the Pro version, but I use that. It also backs up my XML file and everything to OneDrive automatically, which is another advantage to having OneDrive, when you're using a Windows machine. So yeah, Grover Pro, it's a UWP app, so you can't get it. You have to be using Windows 10 to get access to it. But that is a really, really, really nice app. Now understand, when using all these UWP apps, because they're UWP, they automatically work with Windows Mixed Reality. So there's more arguments for why you want to use UWP apps if you can. And that's also the reason why I have the, like I mentioned with VLC, as far as media playing, I have the VLC media player. And that's its own app, but then I also do have the UWP app installed in case I want to use it in Windows Mixed Reality. Okay, so let's see some other. We're getting towards the end of this. As far as like little apps that I use, some extra apps, I do use Real Alarm for an alarm feature. On Windows, like if I'm at a hotel and I have my laptop, I do not trust my smartphone with an alarm. And if for some reason I forgot my watch, which I usually do not forget my watch, and most of the time my alarm comes from my watch, not a smartwatch either, by no means. I mean, it's smart, but it's not smart like it's Apple or Android. Nor is it Fitbit or anything like that. Fuck that shit. But anyway, if I need an alarm, there is Real Alarm. And actually, Cortana has an alarm feature that's not terrible, but I use Realarm. It's RE and then just the word alarm. I use for that. For Readit, I use a UWP app called Readit, Readit. Realarm is also a UWP app, by the way, but I use Readit for that. For IRC, I have been very pleased with what's called Foo IRC, Foo IRC. That is also a UWP app. I just use that. And it's nice and it works. For weather, Microsoft has a weather app that's pretty gorgeous, already built in. That's a UWP app. But I do use Strawberry Weather. That's the name of it, Strawberry Weather, which is also a UWP app and gives me a nice notification on the lock screen and everything. I really like that one. Let's see, what else do we have here? I do use Microsoft's Translator app, which is a UWP app. I do use Microsoft Maps as well. I mean, I've spent a lot of time really getting away from my smartphone. And so as much as Windows 10 kind of uniquely positioned to where you can get mobile features on a full desktop class machine, and so I've come to really enjoy using a lot of UWP apps. So I'll use Microsoft Translator, Microsoft Maps, and all of that. Another one for note-taking, Sticky Notes, which is a built-in Microsoft UWP app on Windows 10 and Windows 10 alone. This is really nice. It literally looks like little sticky notes on your screen, and you can make a bunch of them, and you can add in notations and everything. I mean, it's very, very nice. I use that a lot for note taking. You can set different colors and everything. It's you can even put links in there and even reminders. It's very simple, really nice. I don't really use OneNote anymore. There was a time where I used OneNote, and it's another one of those things that's just way too fucking bloated. So I said, screw it. Let's see, what else do we have here? Torrenting. How about what do I use is if I ever really need to do a torrent? And understand that just because you're torrenting doesn't mean that you're downloading something illegal. You could be downloading the latest Linux distribution, which how ironic and meta is that? For torrenting, I do use. I've gotten to the point where I use the UWP app called Torrex Pro, Torrex Pro, and that's really nice, feature rich, updates often. It's good. Before then, I was using Qubit Torrent, and if I'm on any other platform, that's what I use. I use Qubit Torrent pretty much across the board. In fact, I think Qubit Torrent, they even have that for Android if you have F-Droid installed on your Android device. I just love Qubit Torrent. But Torrex Pro is what I've been using mainly over the past, I guess, maybe year or two. For mail, the built-in mail app is pretty nice, but Thunderbird is Thunderbird, man. You know, like everybody just use Thunderbird. So I use Mozilla Thunderbird for mail, and for multiple accounts and everything. Browser-wise, I use Firefox, especially since Firefox Quantum. I did mess with Edge for a while, and it was kind of nice, and it was fast, and the battery life on my laptop, you really noticed that, like how much it was saving. Like it was really impressive. But Edge still, it's just not there yet. It's like it's close, but it's just not there to where it's a full-featured browser. Even though Edge can do a whole hell of a lot now, where it can read ebooks and it can read PDFs and it can do all this other kind of shit, more than just being a web browser. But I use Firefox. Often for other clients, I will have completely separate web browsers for other clients if I have to do work for them, or if I have to have like a separate account, like Google account or something involved with them. I use other web browsers. My first other web browser that I go to is Opera. If I'm not using Firefox, I go to Opera. And so, that's like I say, that's where I go next. I don't think I'll ever install Google Chrome again. I'd use Iron, SWR or SRware Iron. I would use that before I'd use Google Chrome. I'm just, not happening. And since the Signal app finally came out came out as a standalone app, there's no real need to use Chrome anymore. I don't see any great advantage. Mozilla has all the add-ons I need, or Firefox has all the add-ons I need. So I just, I run with that. Speaking of messaging apps, how about that? So of course, Skype comes automatically with Windows 10. I do use that. The whole world uses Skype, so that shouldn't surprise anybody. Signal, like I just mentioned, I use the desktop app for that, and I use it to great effect, and that's cross-platform, and I use it on whatever platform I happen to have, and I really enjoy it. Line Messenger, I use the UWP app of Line Messenger now, and there's certain clients where I need to have that. Telegram, same deal, where the UWP app is really all you need, and I install that, and away I go. So all of those are, and with Skype, I just use the UWP app. I don't use the full desktop app, which is still available, but eventually it's probably going to go away. So all of those are UWP apps, but I keep those all available on my Windows 10 machine. Now, on my other machines, there's a whole bunch of other messaging platforms that I use, but these are what I use here. If I need to use OTR, I will use Pigeon, but I don't know anybody anymore that really uses OTR, or at least there's nobody in my contacts list, shall I say, that bothers needing OTR. So that just doesn't happen. I think now most people that were into OTR have more or less switched to Signal, at this point. VPN software, yes, of course, I do install a VPN. I use Private Internet Access. They have the best Windows app. It's not UWP, but they have the best Windows software for VPNs, I think, bar none. So I use Private Internet Access for that, and that's I think that pretty much rounds it out. That's what my workflow looks like. Now, like I said, there's a bunch of different extensions and other things I use within Firefox. This has, we didn't get into gaming, either game creation or game playing at all. That's a whole other episode to do. Obviously, that would take another hour. Okay. But this is what makes up my workflow, is using all of these apps to do all of the various things. And I can't think of anything that, all right, so I guess I could say that, like, if I have to rip a Blu-ray, like, I'll use Red Fox. I know some people want to use DVD Fab and stuff like this. But yeah, like, I think this about covered it as far as what I do with that. And also, like, Clone DVD Mobile, if you want to make video files and everything, that's really nice. Handbrake is another one that's great for video creation or for video editing, and that's totally free and cross-platform. But I don't find myself really using those. They're not necessarily a part of my workflow anymore or ever. So, or my fun flow, not just my workflow. But that's it. This is my default loadout of what I use to do what I do personally and for work. And then, there's whole other computers and ecosystems that I work within where it's all very different. And maybe I'll cover those at some point in the future. I'll definitely cover what I run on my phone. Maybe we'll do like Dark Android 3 or something like that. Of course, the Dark Android book's still out there, darkandroid.info. And we have the 2018 edition coming up eventually as well. And I will be doing like a gaming one as well, where we cover emulators and a lot of that other stuff. So those are on their way. I hope you enjoyed this. Maybe you found it useful. You can let me know. Best way to let me know is to give me a heart on Patreon or leave a comment on Patreon. That is one of the easiest ways to give me a metric to say, yeah, I like what the Golden Stallion is doing. Of course, being a patron alone is telling me you love what I do, and I thank you for that. Thank you to all the patrons that make this kind of content possible and afford me the time to do it. Like I said, I hope you find it useful, and woo! I will see you on the other side.